What if I told you that your biggest weakness is actually your greatest weapon? Sounds crazy, right? Because right now, you probably believe that your past, your struggles, your failures are the reasons holding you back. But what if those exact things are the only reason you can become unstoppable? Right now, there are people living comfortable lives, avoiding pain, choosing the easy path every single day, and they will never reach their full potential. And then there are people who embrace pain, who face their fears, who push beyond limits, and they become something different, something rare, something dangerous. This is not motivation. This is a reality most people are too afraid to face. And once you understand it, you can never go back. David Goggins was not born strong. He was not confident. He was not talented. In fact, his life started in one of the worst ways possible. Imagine growing up in a house filled with fear, a place where violence was normal, where safety didn't exist, where every day felt like survival. As a child, Goggins faced abuse, racism, and constant stress. And slowly, without realizing it, his mind started accepting a dangerous belief that he was weak, that he was not enough, that he couldn't succeed. And this is exactly how most people lose, not in the outside world, but inside their own mind. As he grew older, things didn't get better. They got worse. He gained weight. He became insecure. He avoided challenges. He chose comfort over growth. And slowly, his life started falling apart. At one point, he was working a regular job, living an average life, and deeply unhappy. But here's the scary part. He had accepted it. He believed this was all he could ever be. And this is where most people get stuck. Not because they can't change, but because they stop believing they can. But then, something happened. One moment, one realization, one painful truth that changed everything. Goggins looked at himself honestly for the first time. No excuses, no lies, just reality. And what he saw broke him. He realized he had been running away his entire life. Running from pain, running from responsibility, running from effort. And that's when he made a decision. Not a small decision, not a temporary one, a life-changing decision. He would stop running. This is where the transformation begins. Not when life gets easier, but when you decide to face it. Goggins understood something most people never do. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. Every struggle, every failure, every uncomfortable moment is showing you where you are weak. And instead of avoiding it, he decided to attack it. This is the exact opposite of what most people do. Most people run from discomfort. They choose ease. They avoid struggle. And because of that, they stay the same. Goggins started pushing himself in ways that felt impossible. Not slowly, not comfortably, but aggressively. He trained harder than ever before. He forced himself into situations he hated. He did things that made him uncomfortable every single day. And something started changing. Not just his body, but his mind. Because every time he pushed past his limit, he proved something to himself, that he was stronger than he thought. And that belief started growing. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because your mind will fight you. It will tell you to stop. It will tell you it's too hard. It will tell you you're not ready. And most people listen. But Goggins didn't. He created something powerful, what he calls the 40% rule. The idea that when you feel like you're done, you're only at 40% of your true capacity. Think about that. What if every time you stopped, you still had 60% left? That means your limits are not real. They are just mental barriers. And this changes everything. Because now, pain is no longer something to avoid. It becomes something to use. Every difficult moment becomes an opportunity to grow. Every challenge becomes a test. And every time you push through, you become stronger. Not just physically, but mentally. As Alex sat there listening to this story, he felt something shift inside him. He started questioning his own limits. How many times had he stopped too early? How many times had he chosen comfort instead of growth? And for the first time, he realized something uncomfortable. His limits were not real. They were decisions. And now, the question is not whether you are capable. The question is, are you willing to suffer for what you want? Because what you're about to discover next will push this idea to a level most people can't handle. What if the biggest lie you tell yourself is the one that's keeping you weak? Think about it. Every time something goes wrong, every time you fail, every time life doesn't go your way, what do? Do you take full responsibility? Or do you find a reason, a justification, an excuse, something to make yourself feel better? Because here's the truth. Your brain is designed to protect you, not grow you. It will always choose comfort over discomfort, excuses over effort, and safety over progress. And if you listen to it blindly, you will stay exactly where you are. This is where David Goggins introduces something most people are too afraid to face: the accountability mirror. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, not to fix your appearance, but to face your reality. No filters, no lies, no stories, just truth. Brutal, uncomfortable, and raw. Goggins did this every single day. He would look at himself and say exactly what needed to be said. Not what sounded good, not what felt easy, but what was real. You're overweight. You're lazy. You're wasting your potential. Harsh. Yes. But effective? Extremely. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, you gain control. And that's the problem. Most people are not failing because of lack of ability. They are failing because they refuse to face the truth. Alex paused when he heard this. It felt uncomfortable, almost too direct. Because deep down, he knew this was true. How many times had he told himself, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many times had he blamed circumstances, time, or other people? And for the first time, he realized something powerful. Those weren't reasons, they were excuses. And every excuse he accepted was making him weaker. This is how people slowly destroy their own potential. Not in one big decision, but in small daily lies. Goggins understood this deeply. That's why he created a system. Every time he identified a weakness, he didn't ignore it, he attacked it. If he was bad at something, he focused on it. If he was uncomfortable, he moved toward it. Because he knew something most people don't: growth lives on the other side of discomfort. And if you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. It's that simple, but also that difficult. Because your mind will do everything it can to keep you safe. It will create fear. It will create doubt. It will create resistance. And unless you learn to control it, it will control you. This is where things get intense. Because once you start being honest with yourself, there's no going back. You begin to see your patterns, your habits, your weaknesses. And it's not always pretty. In fact, it's often painful. But that pain is necessary. Because awareness creates change. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. And this is why most people stay stuck. Not because they can't improve, but because they don't want to face what needs to be improved. Goggins didn't just stop at awareness. He took it a step further. He turned his weaknesses into fuel. Every insult, every failure, every negative experience, he used it. Not as an excuse, but as motivation. He built what he calls a cookie jar, a mental collection of past victories and painful moments that proved he could survive hard things. And whenever his mind told him to quit, he reached into that jar. He reminded himself of everything he had already overcome, and that gave him strength to keep going. Now think about this for a second. What if instead of avoiding your past, you used it? What if every difficult moment you've experienced became proof that you're stronger than you think? Because that's the shift. That's where everything changes. When you stop seeing your past as a weakness and start using it as power. Alex could feel this hitting deeper now. This wasn't just about motivation anymore. This was about identity, about who you choose to become. Because every day, you have a choice. You can lie to yourself, or you can face the truth. You can stay comfortable, or you can grow. You can avoid pain, or you can use it. And here's the uncomfortable reality. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to force you to change. No one is going to push you every day. That responsibility is yours. Completely. Fully. And once you accept that, everything shifts. Because now, you're no longer waiting. You're deciding. But here's the real challenge. Facing the truth is just the beginning. Because what you're about to discover next will show you how to push beyond limits you didn't even know existed. And most people are not ready for that. What if I told you that every time you feel like quitting, you're not even halfway done? Sounds impossible, right? Because in that moment, when your body is tired, your mind is screaming, and everything inside you is telling you to stop, it feels like you've reached your absolute limit. But what if that feeling is a lie? What if your brain is tricking you into stopping early, just to protect you from discomfort? This is where David Goggins introduces one of the most powerful and dangerous ideas you will ever hear, the 40% rule. The idea that when your mind tells you you're done, you've only reached 40% of your true potential, which means you still have 60% left, hidden, untouched, and used. Alex felt something shift the moment he understood this, because suddenly, all those times he had stopped, during workouts, during difficult tasks, during stressful situations, he realized something uncomfortable. He hadn't reached his limit. He had just reached his comfort threshold. And there's a massive difference between the two. Your comfort threshold is where things start getting hard. Your real limit is far beyond that. But most people never reach it because they quit the moment things get uncomfortable. They confuse discomfort with danger. They think struggle means stop. But in reality, struggle is the signal to keep going. Goggins didn't just believe this idea, he tested it. Over and over again, in the most extreme conditions. He pushed his body to exhaustion, his mind to breaking points, and his limits to places most people would never even attempt. Running for miles with broken bones. Training for hours with almost no rest. Forcing himself to continue even when everything inside him was telling him to quit. And every time he went further, he proved something powerful. His limits were not physical. They were mental. And once he broke through that mental barrier, everything else changed. But here's where it gets real. Because your mind will fight you. Hard. It will create excuses that sound logical. It will tell you, you've done enough. You deserve a break. This is too much. And the scary part is, it will sound convincing. Because your brain is designed for survival, not growth. It wants to keep you safe. It wants to avoid pain. It wants to conserve energy. And unless you learn to recognize this, you will keep listening to it. You will keep stopping early. You will keep living at 40%. This is why mental toughness is not optional, it's necessary. Because without it, your emotions will control your actions. And when emotions take over, discipline disappears. But mental toughness flips that. It allows you to act based on decision, not feeling. It allows you to keep going even when you don't feel like it. And that's where real growth happens. Not when it's easy, not when you're motivated, but when it's hard, and you still continue. Alex started realizing how often he had relied on motivation. Waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel confident, waiting for the right moment. But now he understood something different. Motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. But discipline stays. And mental toughness is what builds that discipline. It's what allows you to move forward even when motivation disappears. And here's the deeper truth. Every time you push past that mental barrier, you expand it. What once felt impossible becomes normal. What once felt hard becomes easy. And slowly, your capacity increases. Your endurance increases. Your confidence increases. Because now you have proof. Proof that you can go further than you thought. Proof that your limits are not fixed. They are flexible. Goggins calls this process callousing the mind. Just like your hands develop calluses when you do hard work repeatedly, your mind develops strength when you consistently push through discomfort. At first, it hurts. It feels unnatural. It feels overwhelming. But over time, you adapt. You become stronger. You become more resilient. And things that once broke you no longer affect you. Now think about this. What if the life you want is just on the other side of that 40% barrier? What if the only thing stopping you is the moment you choose to quit? Because that's the reality. Most people never reach their potential, not because they can't, but because they don't push far enough. Alex sat there, completely still, because now everything made sense. His limits were not real. His excuses were not real. His doubts were not real. They were just signals telling him to stop early. And for the first time, he understood. He had control, not over everything, but over how far he was willing to go. And now the question is simple. The next time your mind tells you to stop, will you listen or will you push past it? Because what you're about to discover next will show you how to build a mindset that never breaks. And most people will never reach that level. What if your mind could become so strong that nothing could break you anymore? No criticism, no failure, no pain, no pressure. Imagine that for a second. A version of you that doesn't stop when things get hard, that doesn't slow down when life hits back, that doesn't collapse under stress. Sounds impossible, right? Because most people believe mental strength is something you either have or you don't. But what if it's something you build? What if it's something you train, just like your body? This is where David Goggins reveals the next level of transformation, callousing your mind. And once this process begins, you don't just improve, you become unbreakable. Alex leaned forward as he read this, because now things were getting real. This wasn't about motivation anymore. This wasn't about temporary energy. This was about building something permanent. Goggins explained that just like your hands develop calluses when you repeatedly expose them to hard work, Your mind develops strength when you repeatedly expose it to discomfort. But here's the part most people ignore. You have to choose that discomfort. It doesn't just happen. You have to deliberately put yourself in situations that challenge you, situations that test you, situations that force you to grow. And that's exactly what most people avoid. Think about it. Every day, people choose the easy option, the comfortable option, the safe option. They wake up and follow the same routine. They avoid challenges. They avoid pressure. They avoid anything that feels difficult. And because of that, they stay the same. Their mind never grows stronger. Their limits never expand. Their potential never increases. But the moment you start choosing discomfort, everything changes. Because now, you are no longer reacting to life. You are training for it. Goggins didn't wait for life to challenge him. He created his own challenges. He would wake up early when he didn't feel like it. He would train harder when his body was already tired. He would push further when his mind was telling him to stop. And every time he did this, he was adding another layer of strength to his mind. Slowly, consistently, powerfully. This is what most people don't understand. Mental toughness is not built in one big moment. It's built in small daily decisions. Decisions that seem insignificant at the time, but over time, they create something unstoppable. Alex started seeing his own habits differently. Every time he chose comfort over effort, he was weakening his mind. Every time he avoided a challenge, he was staying the same. And every time he gave in to excuses, he was reinforcing those patterns. And that realization hit hard. Because now he understood, discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. And here's where it gets even deeper. Because discipline is not something you wait for. It's something you create. Through action, through repetition, through doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. This is where most people fail. They wait to feel motivated. They wait to feel ready. They wait for the right mood. But that moment rarely comes. And because of that, they stay stuck. But those who succeed, they act anyway. They move anyway. They execute anyway. And over time, that becomes their identity. Goggins understood this better than anyone. He didn't rely on motivation. He relied on systems, habits, standards. He created rules for himself that he followed no matter what. And that's what made him different. Because when your behavior is controlled by standards instead of feelings, you become consistent. And consistency is what creates results. Now imagine this. What if you trained your mind the same way you train your body? What if every day you pushed yourself just a little further, just a little harder, just a little beyond your comfort zone? Over time, those small efforts would compound. They would build strength. They would build resilience. They would build confidence. And slowly, you would become someone different. Alex could feel this transformation happening inside him. Not in a dramatic way, but in a real way. A subtle shift. A change in perspective. Because now, he wasn't afraid of discomfort anymore. He was starting to see it differently. Not as something to avoid, but as something to use. Something to grow from. Something to build strength. And that's the shift most people never make. They see pain as a problem. But in reality, pain is the process. It's the path. It's the way forward. Now the question is, will you keep choosing comfort? Or will you start building a mind that can't be broken? Because what you're about to discover next will decide everything. And most people will never go that far. What if the real transformation doesn't happen when you push harder, but when you become someone who no longer needs to be pushed? Think about that carefully. Most people spend their lives trying to change their actions. They try to wake up early, try to stay disciplined, try to stay focused. But it never lasts. Why? Because they are trying to change what they do without changing who they are. And that's the final truth David Goggins reveals. Real growth is not about motivation, it's about identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who does hard things automatically. The kind of person who doesn't negotiate with weakness. The kind of person who shows up no matter what. And once that identity is built, everything else follows. Alex sat there in silence because this hit differently. For the first time, he realized that all his previous attempts to improve had failed for one simple reason. He was relying on temporary effort instead of permanent identity. He would push himself for a few days, maybe even weeks, but eventually he would fall back into old habits. Not because he didn't want success, but because deep down, he still saw himself as the same person. And this is where most people get stuck. They try to act like someone successful, but they don't believe they are that person yet. And until that belief changes, nothing truly changes. Goggins didn't just train his body or his habits, he rebuilt his identity. Through pain, through discipline, through relentless action. Every time he chose the hard path, he was proving something to himself. Not to others, not for validation, but for himself. And over time, those proofs started stacking. Small wins, hard moments, difficult choices, each one reinforcing a new belief. I don't quit. I don't stop. I don't break. And eventually, that belief became who he was. This is the level most people never reach. Because it requires consistency. It requires discomfort. It requires showing up even when there's no reward. And here's the powerful part. Once your identity changes, your behavior becomes automatic. You don't need motivation to wake up early. You don't need reminders to work hard. You don't need external pressure to stay consistent. Because it's no longer something you do, it's who you are. And this is what creates unstoppable people. Not talent, not luck, not circumstances. Identity. Alex could feel something shift permanently now. This wasn't temporary motivation. This wasn't excitement that would fade tomorrow. This was clarity, a realization that everything he had been searching for was already within his control. Not the outcome, not the results, but the effort, the discipline, the decisions. And for the first time, he understood. He didn't need to wait for the perfect moment. He didn't need better conditions. He didn't need more time. He needed to decide who he was going to be. Because in the end, success is not about reaching a destination. It's about becoming someone who deserves it. Someone who has the discipline to handle it. Someone who has the strength to sustain it. And that process is built one decision at a time. Now think about this. Every single day, you are building your identity. With every choice you make, every action you take, every excuse you accept or reject, you are either becoming stronger or staying the same. There is no neutral. There is no pause. You are always moving in one direction or the other. And the scary part is, most people don't even realize it. But now you do. And that changes everything. Because now, the next time you feel like quitting, it's not just a moment. It's a decision. A decision about who you are. A decision about who you are becoming. And that's where the real battle happens. Not outside. Not in your environment. But inside your mind. So the question is not, can you do it? The question is, who are you choosing to become? Because once you become someone who refuses to quit, nothing in this world can stop you.